Hi, it's Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're going to take a look at the latest and greatest motherboards from MSI. This is the MPG Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. What a mouthful. This is the latest board on the range for Intel's new processors. So if you're looking at a 245, 265 or 285K or KF processors, this potentially could be on your shopping list, and it may well be for many reasons. This is absolutely loaded with features. Whether or not you need them, that is going to be down to the individual, and at the time of recording this video, we're looking at the beginning of November 2024. We haven't quite got the lower end chipsets available yet for that particular platform, so this is amongst the the limited few which are available on the market right now. So in today's video, I'm going to go through, do an unboxing, go through some of the features. I'll try and include as much as I possibly can. There is an absolute ton of features on this board, so yeah, potentially I might miss a few. If I do, check out the description. You'll see some links for affiliated suppliers, and potentially there'll be some updates as well. If there is anything which I've missed out, which I think is incredibly important, then I'll put it in a pinned comment. So let's start off with the box. So taking a look at the box, you can see this is the MPG Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. It's got a really nice aesthetic to it. It's very much a kind of silver and white with a little bit of black on there, so should fit in with most designs. If you're going for an all-white build, I think it's going to tie in quite nicely. As you can see, some of the specifications there, so ready for AI PC. Probably best ignoring that for now. Also, you've got ultra connectivity, so we've got Wi-Fi 7, we've also got 5 gigabit Ethernet, and also Thunderbolt connectivity as well, and also Bluetooth 5.4. Pretty much all of the connectivity on here is provided by Intel, so this is using the Intel Killer Wi-Fi 7. Also, we're using the Killer 5 gigabit Ethernet, which is backwards compatible with 2.5 gigabit, 1 gigabit, and 10100. And of course, this is all based around Intel's Z890 chipset. On the back of the box goes over some of the key specifications. So we've got a 16-phase duet rail power system, so it's running 16 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. We've also got premium thermal design, easy M.2 shield frozr 2s. We've also got easy PCI Express release catch, Lightning Gen 5 support, Thunderbolt 4, like we said, Wi-Fi 7 and Bluetooth 5.4, and that 5 gigabit LAN. Also goes through the specifications and also gives you an I/O overview on the back. So let's take a look at the accessories and what we actually get inside of the box. So obviously you get the motherboard itself, which we'll take a much closer look at shortly. You also get a Wi-Fi 7 antenna. So this is both magnetic and also wall mountable. There's some hooks on the back, and it uses their new push fit connection, so you don't have those horrible twist ones. This just pushes on. Nice long cable, and yeah, nice to have a nice extended antenna to get those Wi-Fi 7 speeds. Also included the usual stuff, so you've got the European Union regulatory notices if you're in the EU region. You also get a quick install guide. There is a bunch of stickers, so if you want to adorn your case and also potentially your peripherals and cables with stickers, you certainly can do. So nice selection there for you to choose from. And also there's the MSI shout out leaflet, tells you about how you can rate their product and potentially win some prizes. Now we'll take a look at some of the usual suspects which we get. So there are a pair of SATA cables, one straight, one right angled. You get 4 of the M.2 retainers, and these are actually a little bit different. So these are toggle springs. So these are actually quite cool. We'll show you those in more depth when we take a look at the motherboard. In order to remove them from the motherboard, there is actually a special MSI branded key, which used, I think it's a 5mm hex. So yeah, nice to have that included, just so if you want to remove them from the board, you can do. Something which I wish a lot of manufacturers would do, especially with these newer boards where potentially the stuff on the board is so new, Windows doesn't support it, and that is a USB stick with all your drivers on there. So these aren't going to be obviously the latest and greatest drivers, but this will certainly help if you've got to the point where you're installing Windows 11 and it says that you don't have your Wi-Fi drivers installed. Well, this could save you bacon. Next, we'll come on to some of the more luxury features. So this one here is a connector to connect up to your front panel I/O, and effectively it's just an extension. So you plug that into your front panel I/O for your power button, reset, switch, all that kind of stuff. It just extends it a little bit further and gives you a pin out. So if you want to wire it from the back, make it a little bit easier, you certainly can do. There's a lot going on in a lot of modern cases these days, so actually having a little bit of an extension on there is pretty useful. Also, there's another cable, which is an unusual one. So this is one of MSI's new connections. So there's an Easy Connect on the motherboard. Now this actually breaks out into 3 connectors. So it breaks out into a 3-pin 5V addressable RGB, also a PWM fan header, and also a USB 2 port, which is slightly unusual, but MSI are bringing out a load of new fans, which actually are controlled in MSI Center via USB, but also you've got your RGB and PWM controls there. So this is going to be useful if you're investing in some of MSI's new technology fans. So that's it for the accessories. Let's take a look at the motherboard itself. And as you can see, there's a lot of metal on this. This thing is really, really heavy. So you've got two major heat sinks over the VRM portion, and there is actually a heat pipe which joins the two together to help dissipate the heat, and all of them are finned as well, so to aiding the airflow. It's got 90 amp stages on there, so it's a 16 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 setup, so it should be more than adequate for any of the current Intel processors available and potentially more in future. Something which is quite striking about this board is, well, how much metal there is, how heavy it is, but also how easy it is to actually gain access to components. So MSI have integrated their Easy Latch system for both the primary M.2 slot, which is PCI Express Gen 5, and also this one here, which covers the rest of the M.2 drives and also that Z890 chipset. To remove them, pretty easy to do. No screws required, no magic or trickery. Just push in the button on the side there, and you can lift this whole section off, and you can then gain access to your M.2 slots. And also you can see the heatsink for the built-in chipset. Also in here, you've got the thermal pads pre-installed. Obviously, when you're installing your drives, make sure you peel off the plastics on the bottom there to get the best thermal possible. The same applies to the top slot as well. So this is just for the primary M.2. Push in the latch and this removes as well. So again, completely screwless design, which is really nice. And when it comes to actually installing M.2 drives, they've made it extremely simple. So you have got the option of the little latches, which you can turn around, which we've used to seeing on some drives, but also it has got these little spring-loaded toggles, which you're probably seeing for some B-roll. So you put your drive in, push it down, and these spring-loaded toggles just hold your drive in place. To remove the drive, just push the toggle slightly away from the drive, and it will pop out. No tools required. Absolutely brilliant. So now that this is significantly lighter, let's take a look and see what is going on. So the first thing which actually struck me as being slightly unusual, whether or not you like it or not, please let me know in the comment section, but they've actually moved the power connectors for your CPU. So your ATX power is now at the top here, so you've got two 8-pin ports. Traditionally on most motherboards, in fact almost all motherboards, they are situated up in this top corner. But being this is a little bit cramped at the moment, then they've decided to move those across. So you've got ATX CPU power 1 and ATX CPU power 2. You don't have to use both of them, but if you are potentially doing some overclocking, then you might want to use both. If you've got both cables on your power supply, plug them both in, makes no difference. But if you've only got a slightly cheaper power supply, then you can just get away with just using CPU port 1. If we go back to the corner where these would traditionally lie, so there is a system fan header in there. So if you want to plug in a rear mounted fan, nice easy place to gain access to it. And also behind there, spin this round, you may not be able to see it, but the BIOS flashback mechanism is actually in here and the LEDs for it are there, but they do shine through for the back, so you don't necessarily have to see it. But yeah, very nice layout, slightly unusual, may be a little bit of a confusing time for some novice builders if you're building for the first time and you've watched videos and you've always seen people plug them in over here. But anyway, I digress. So when it comes to memory, got 4 slots here. So this is going to support up to 9200 megatransfers per second, DDR5 RAM, and up to 256 gigs of RAM are supported at the time of launch. Dead center in the middle there, you've got the CPU socket. So this is using the new LGA 1851 socket from Intel for the Intel Core Ultra processors of the 200 series. Hopefully it'll be the 300 series and possibly the 400 series. It would be really nice to see some longevity out of this platform. So let's take a look at some of the other connectors. So again, slightly unusual. The CPU connector for your CPU fan is actually a little bit further away. Generally they tend to be over here a little bit more or around this area. But you've got your CPU fan connector there. You've got a color-coded white port there. That is for your AIO pump. And underneath that, you've got a system fan header. So nice to have all those in one place. Underneath that, you've got your diagnostic D-LEDs. So you've got 4 LEDs there, which will light up to tell you if your CPU's working, your GPU's working, RAM, etc., etc. But if that isn't enough, you've also got the segment LED display, which will go through the post cycle, give you a very detailed readout code. So if for some reason your system isn't booting, it will give you the code on there, which you can then look up in the manual, which unfortunately you have to go online for. So make sure you've got your mobile phone ready, and then you can diagnose your system. So nice to see that included now on boards. 24-pin main power connector. Underneath that, you've got the new MSI Easy Connect. So again, that is for that 3-way connector we talked about a little bit earlier. Underneath that, You've got your front panel connection, so that is for your USB 3.0, your Type A ports, which we see on most cases. And underneath that, just tucked away, there is actually a USB Type C. You're probably seeing for some B-roll because it's actually hidden underneath this cover. Something slightly unusual about this, the USB Type C front panel connector also supports 27 watts power delivery. So if you're someone who likes to plug in your mobile phone or something to give it a quick charge whilst you're at your desk, I think that's going to be quite handy. Just above there, or to the side of it, there is this very unusual looking button. You're probably wondering what it is. This is actually a toggle button. So toggles locked or unlocked, and if you're looking very closely, you'll notice that the catch on the PCI Express graphics card slot is actually moving. So that is in the locked position, that is now in the unlocked position. I really like this, and the fact that you don't have to kind of manipulate the button at the same time as holding your expensive graphics card. I think this is really cool. Some manufacturers do it so you just press the button and you kind of have to hold it and then put your graphics card in or remove it. Whereas actually having it locked into position, it's a really good idea. Also being the fact that you're likely to have your M.2 shields in there, the chance of you actually getting your fingers in there to remove your graphics card are basically zero. Also down this side edge, which is encapsulated, there's 4 SATA ports. So if you connect up your SATA drives, you can connect those into there and you can now see that port a little bit easier. Now before we get too far into the connectivity at the bottom, let's take a look at the M.2 slots, because there's actually a ton of them. So you've got 5 in total. Starting at the top one, so hopefully I'll put this on screen with some graphics so you can see what they are. Top slot, PCI Express Gen 5 times 4. This one is directly connected to your CPU for the fastest speeds. Underneath that, you've got PCI Express Gen 4. That is also connected to the CPU for decent speeds. Then the other 3 which we've got down here are all connected to the chipset. Those are all PCI Express Gen 4 also. So you've got 4 PCI Express Gen 4 times 4 slots and 1 PCI Express Gen 5 times 4. So let's take a look at the slots and see what we've got here. So as you'd expect on a high-end motherboard, PCI Express Gen 5 slot times 16. Underneath that, PCI Express Gen 4 times 1. And the very bottom slot, although 16 times size, is rocking a PCI Express Gen 4x4. Now let's take a look at the connectivity at the bottom. So we've got our front panel connection. So that is going to be for your power switch, reset switch, power LED, reset, hard drive LED, that kind of stuff. Above that, you've got your speaker connection, should you want to rock one of those. You've also got your CMOS reset or JC reset. You've got an addressable RGB header in there. Also above that, there is a physical switch. So if you're someone who doesn't like RGB, then you can actually just flick the switch across and it will turn off the RGB for the entire board. So that potentially for some people might be useful. You've also got a TPM port there. So if you want to add on an additional TPM port, you can do. And also there is a 5-pin Thunderbolt add-on card section. Moving along from that, so we've got another 2 PWM headers there. Then you've got USB 2.0, another 2 of those headers, potentially 3 if you use the one which plugs into the Easy Connect. Move along, yet another addressable RGB connector. Then you've also got an 8-pin PCI Express connection. So you're probably wondering what that is for. Now this is designed to give your PCI Express slots additional power should they need it. Now realistically, I don't think anyone is ever going to use it. Potentially extreme overclockers might want to. Really, I don't know why they've added that. Obviously there is going to be a need for it at some point, but what that is, I honestly couldn't tell you. As far as I know, the graphics cards these days are going to get all of their power from the PCI Express slot and also that 12-volt high power connection or your traditional PCI Express 8-pin slots. Who knows? Nvidia's 5000 series are coming out, so yeah, maybe there's going to be some weird stuff going on there. We will find out very shortly. Moving along from that, so we've got another 2 PWM fan headers. There's actually a ton of PWM headers on there. You've actually got 8 in total. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 fan headers. So even if you are thinking of populating this with an absolute ton of fans, chances are you won't need any kind of hubs, which is absolutely brilliant. Moving on from that, yet another addressable RGB output. You've also got your traditional old school 12-volt RGB, and you've got your front panel header for the onboard audio. Okay, so let's take a look at the rear I/O. So the rear I/O, again, very nice, lots of stuff on here, lots of USB Type-C and Thunderbolt. We'll start off in the far side. So we've got 2 buttons there, one of which is your BIOS flashback button at the bottom, and just above that you've got your CMOS reset. So if you are doing a little bit of overclocking and you kind of overdial things a little bit, you just want to reset your BIOS, and you can press that in as well. I think those are a little bit too close to each other, to be honest with you. I would have liked to have seen a little bit of separation there, but there is also as well an LED as well, so that'll give you output. So if you are flashing your BIOS, you'll see the LED flashing, you'll know when your BIOS is flashed, so that's pretty good. Got an HDMI output port. Most people buying this type of level board, I doubt if you're going to be using onboard graphics, but potentially you can use that for some form of diagnostics should your GPU not be functioning properly. Next up, we've got a pair of Thunderbolt 4 ports, so up to 40 gigabits per second. Then you've got a USB Type-C, so that's a 10 gig port. Above that, the blue ports, they're going to be USB 3.2 Gen 1, 5 gigabit per second. And then you've got a USB 2 port there as well, so for BOS flashback duties, or possibly headsets, microphones, that kind of thing. Above that, we've got our Intel Killer 5G Ethernet port there. And then you've got a bank of 4 USB 3.2 Gen 2 ports, 10 gigabit per second. You've got your 2 connections there for your Wi-Fi 7 LAN. And also then you've got your audio outputs. I think it's actually a good idea that they've actually reduced these. I don't think many people use analog surround systems these days. So they've kind of simplified it a little bit. So you've got your line out, so speakers, and you've got your line in, or microphone, which is the middle one, and also you've got your digital SPDIF output. So there you go, there is a unboxing and quick overview of the MSI MPG Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. I think I got that right. Hopefully I did. Yeah, a fantastic board. It's a real shame that the processors for these boards have come out to, let's be favourable and say a lackluster start, but hopefully with some improvements in the Windows scheduler and basically some tweaks to the BIOS and things like that, hopefully these processors can improve on their performance. They're great for content creation, but for gaming, they are lacking, which is unfortunate. So if you are looking for a higher end board to home your new Intel Core Ultra processor, I think this is definitely worth a look. It is going to set you back a fair few quid. This is an extremely high-end board, and all the features on here all mount up to being a relatively expensive motherboard. So at the time of recording, this is coming in at around about £380, which is a lot of change. So if you're not prepared to wait and see what comes out with the H800 chipsets or the lower end B800s or whatever they decide to release to us after CES next year, then I think this is one of the good choices. Again, it's a little bit expensive, but if you do want the best, then you've got to pay the premium. So there you go, that has been the MSI MPG Z890 Edge TI Wi-Fi. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content like this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe and the chime notification. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.